The State of the Nation Address
on 702.
WhatsApp 072
702
1702.
It's 25 minutes now before 12 o'clock. We have to also hear what business expectations are of the State of the Nation Address, Labour's expectations as well. So we'll start with Business Unity South Africa. We'll speak to Khulekani Mathe, who is with Business Unity South Africa, and then we'll hear from Labour as well. We'll bring in COSATU, but I also want us to take some time to reflect on what the President announced last year. What did he promise? And based on those promises and commitments, what has he been able to achieve so far? So that's what we'll also look at. Khulekani Mathe is the CEO at Business Unity South Africa, joining us on the line. Khulekani, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement, and good morning to your listeners.
I want to start off with what was reported yesterday and confirmed by the DA this morning, this supposed agreement between the DA leader John Steenhuisen and the minister in the presidency Maropane Ramokgopa around the NHI. The DA believes that that agreement that they've reached suggests the medical aids are not going to be phased out ultimately, or play some complementary role. So they will stay as they are currently now, even with the implementation of the NHI. Are you aware of that, or this advisory council that will be formed to take a final decision on these changes?
We are not aware of that from official sources other than through the reports that you are referring to. We have, of course, been very critical of the NHI in its current form and have made proposals for improving it. And so we would welcome any a decision of that kind that seems to take a really sensible approach to how we address our healthcare issues towards universal health coverage.
Yeah, there are obviously a number of competing priorities. As the business sector, what would you like the president to focus on? What are the key priorities for you?
So, Clement, the priorities and the competing priorities is the reality of every society. It gets easier when you have a growing economy that generates the resources that allow a government to address many of those. And of course, the opposite is true in an economy that is not growing or that has weak economic growth. And so because of that, one of the major things that we expect the president to commit to is, the economic reforms that he has been implementing to really try and get our economy to a high growth path. Because when we get that right, then the competing priorities will be less of an issue than it is the case right now.
But there has been some progress made with the president's reform agenda. I mean, you look at what's happening at Transnet, for instance, bringing in the private sector. Those negotiations, there seem to be progress there. We've had, over 280 or 300 days of load shedding, even though we went back to it the last weekend. There has been some progress, though, in as far as the reform agenda that the president committed to.
Absolutely, and we welcome that, and we have been obviously playing our part in those reforms through a number of initiatives that we are part of in partnership with government. We welcome those, but we also know that we need to do much more in driving those economic reforms so that we can reach higher levels of growth upwards of 3%. At the moment, our growth level is just far too low to sustain, let alone begin to address some of the critical challenges that we face.
Yeah, and our economic growth may be strangled further by these diplomatic, should we call them, challenges that we've experienced over the last couple of days. You've got the U.S. president threatening to cut aid to South Africa. Who knows if he won't threaten to also somehow beat us with some tariffs like he's doing with Mexico and Canada if we don't do what the US likes, for instance. Are you concerned about that as the business sector around this relationship we now have with such a crucial country that is so crucial to us as a trading partner?
We are very concerned, as are, I think, many other countries, about some of the pronouncements by the President of the United States on a variety of issues, which does not bode well for global growth. But I think that at the end of the day, we have got to focus on reforming this economy and also making sure that we strengthen regional integration so that we can benefit from the Africa continental free trade area, because that expands our markets and opportunities for African goods to reach far greater markets.
Yeah. Khulekani, thank you so much for making time. Khulekani Mathe is a CEO at Business Unity South Africa. It's 20 minutes now before 12 o'clock.
News,
Updates.
interviews,
Everything you need to know from the State of the Nation address.
702.
Let's walk the talk.
Mike Shingange is COSATU's deputy president to tell us what Labour is expecting. Mike, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement and your listeners. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for making time for us. Let me start with global issues. Similar question I asked the CEO of Business Unity South Africa. How concerned are you as Labour about, this almost, it's not a tit for tat, because really our government's response has been measured, but these attacks that are coming from the US, the Secretary of State says that he will not be coming to the G20 meetings. You've got Donald Trump threatening to cut aid to South Africa. There are Republicans who are concerned about our policies that are redressing the injustices of the past. So it looks like we're going to have some tough time with the U.S. over the next 4 years. How does the president even respond to that tonight? And should he?
Very much, Clement. Yes, he should. In fact, even if you didn't ask that question, we were going to start there. That for a state of the nation to mean something tangible to the South Africans, the president and the government need to assure the nation where we stand on all these things, not just in the USA in relation to South Africa, but also what is happening in DRC and Rwanda. We need clarity on that so that we know as a nation what are we doing there, what do we stand for, and what are we going to do with this provocation that is taking place, including the loss of lives. So that is going to be important for a president when addressing the nation to clarify that, because that brings stability in terms of the certainty policy-wise in the country, so that we know as a citizen what are we supporting, what is it that we are standing behind our government for. Even in the issue of the USA, of course, we come from a section of South African society that we don't think we should back America. And when they think that there are some South Africans that are not happy because of the government's redressing the injustice of the past, it is important for the president to know that there's a majority of South Africans that are very happy that the government is taking such a direction, albeit very late in the year, in the day, which is 30 years later. But however, it's a step in the right direction, that the transformative and the regressive measures that government is pursuing, they must know that they've got a backing of South Africa. So, of course, we do think that the president should respond, not in a reckless way, but just to affirm the South African policy and the South African nation as we have been since 1994. The South African foreign policy is not something new that is brought about by the government of national unity, or the relationship we're being having with the USA, good or bad, is not something that is starting now. So we will want and hope the president will really stand firm behind the South African foreign policy, but also the South African domestic policy that is a transformative policy and a program to transform the lives of our people. So yes, we will respond.
Okay, and on the DRC, what are you expecting as COSATU? A few parties have called for our soldiers to be withdrawn from this mission, whatever it is, whether it's an enforcement mission or a peacekeeping mission. And now we're hearing that the ceasefire in the Eastern DRC is not holding. The M23 have been advancing, and we've got to be concerned about our soldiers seeing what's happened already in the beginning of this year.
Of course, we're concerned about the loss of life of our South African citizens, more so the defenders of our nation, the soldiers. And we think the primary and immediate concern now is it's a safe return of the departed, including those who are wounded, so that the families here and we as a nation, we can be together with the family to see through them during this difficult time. So the South African government, in our view, should do everything in their power to ensure that the safe passage of those. But our view on what we're doing in DRC is a question of clarity. Is it a peacekeeping mission? Is it a peace enforcement mission? Are we there in combat? And whatever it is, to an extent that we are not doing it as an isolated country or as a voluntary measure from ourselves, but it's a commitment we have made as a country to have a peace in Africa, or to build a peaceful South Africa, and SADC, and so on and so on. That we are not doing it on our own, but we're doing it within the bodies to which we are affiliated to, SADC, like AU, and like United Nations. We're not those who say people must withdraw and come back. Otherwise, we're deleting our responsibility to the international commitment we have made. However, whatever the mission it is, can it be resourced properly? Can the safety of our soldiers be guaranteed? And can it be clarified to the nation so that we, again, as I said before, we know what we are doing in DRC, what the mission it is it justifiable? We want to hear it tonight, but also are we properly equipped? What are the inadequacies that needs to be resolved? Then so that we can support it as a nation. We must know what is it that we are standing behind our government for or on.
Yeah. Mike Shingange, thank you so much for making time. Mike Shingange is the Deputy President of COSATU.